Hello everybody, this is going to be a install video for the Reddog Fabrication Bumper on the Lexus GX470. I don't think there's a video on YouTube so far showing this, so I thought I'd do so in order to help some people out. I'm gonna skip the removal of the stock bumper just because there's so many videos on YouTube already that show it really well, and I kind of want to get started. One thing I will say is that when you're popping off these plastic clips for this beginning part, I find that if you hit the clips with the heat gun on low setting, even a hairdryer would work, before you pop them, it's much less likely that they'll break, especially if you're in the cold weather and the plastic is brittle. So saves you a trip to replace these later. Next, we got to take this support bracket off here. So you start off over here. Easy as that. And continue along. Okay, for some reason on my car, this center support bracket has a little spot weld on that right side. So before I tackle that, I'm going to take off this main piece here. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 14mm bolts on either end. And once you have them off, that just comes off like that. And now you have more room to work with, because next we're gonna have to grind and cut off these two brackets. Okay, so as I mentioned, that bracket right there and that bracket right there are both gonna have to get cut off. So what you're gonna do is mark 2.5 inches from the edge, like that. For my American counterparts, you're just gonna have to convert. But what I found was 2.5 in my case turned out to be exactly the same length as this little divot here. So you'll see my white line marks up with that. So that's where I'm gonna cut. Same with this side here. You can remove your headlight if you want to for safety's sake. I think I'm just going to stick some cardboard between the two, bend it forwards, and cut it. Alright, so this next part is involving cutting the body panels on the corners. So basically what we're trying to do is turn this into this. And I'll take you step by step, but I highly recommend that you have one of these oscillating tools. They're meant for wood, but they cut through plastic like butter, and they're perfect for getting right between the fender and the thing. And a side grinder with a metal cutting wheel. You need that for the metal parts. Okay, so next what you're gonna do is take a Phillips, remove a bolt, and take this piece of plastic out. And you're gonna be left with these two guys that you gotta remove next. They're plastic. And I've outlined here where you need to cut. So you're basically cutting along here, following the contour of this corner. So flush with the fender across, then down, follow the contour, and up. And then you'll see this piece comes off. And same with here. Like that, you can see I started cutting already. And here, same. Hopefully that makes sense. It'll make more sense once your bumper's off. And here's how it looks after. Give you some idea. So now that these two plastic tabs are gone, next we got to get rid of these two plastic tabs. So you're going to cut right across here where these two white lines are. Super simple. And then what you got to do is basically cut directly across like that. And the whole point is to avoid cutting this thing, because this is the bracket for the headlight. So you don't want to disturb this 10mm, but you want to get rid of everything below in a nice straight line, just like that. Okay, so you can see that I've cut that there, and the last piece now, oh, and I also cut these two pieces of plastic out of here, and the last piece now is just this front part. And again, we're avoiding this 10mm that's supporting the headlight. So what I like to do first is just do a nice straight cut following this plastic bracket to here, and then once you have that cut, you can see it on this side, it'll come up to about there, and then I just go at a bit of an angle to make it flush with this corner. And that's it. So you can cut from this side, but just make sure you don't start cutting into this plastic bracket. Okay, so next, this center bracket needs to come off. It's just got two little spot welds, so you just keep bending it back and forth until it pops off like that. And it was right there. Then, what we gotta do is right where this came off of like that, pop, that's gone. We're gonna make a cut right here with the side grinder, just to there. And then we're gonna take this lip that's sticking out and then bend it flush that way so that it's straight with this. And that's going to give us room to bend these lines this way towards that. Be very careful not to cut your line. So like I was saying earlier about the plastic clips, in order to prevent them from breaking, and apparently these are quite brittle, hit them with a bit of heat. Get it warmed up a little bit, and they'll be a lot less brittle and a lot less likely to break. Okay. And then what we want to do is remove this clip. If you can see correctly, come from the back with some tweezers and help pry that guy out, just like that. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, made the cut there, and now we gotta bend this tab flush. So just kind of, I heated it up a bit to make it a bit more malleable, but just gotta kind of work it flush like that. So now we got more room, and I'll probably hammer this in a bit. I just won't do it on video to save you the noise. I'm gonna heat it up a bit more and grab my big hammer and give it a few whacks. Okay, so what I'm doing here is this clip is right in the way of the AC line getting further back. So I undid that. Pull this out of the way. somewhere up there, right? So we got more room. Okay, went well. As you can see, the lines are pretty much flush with the body where we made the cut here and put it flush down. What I found was easiest was to hit these two brackets there and there with the heat gun for a bit, and then I literally just bent it forward with my hands, because the tranny line is a lot more flexible, so you don't have to worry about it as much. It's just the brackets you're bending. And then after that, I hit the AC line with a bit of heat at the corners, not too much since it's an AC line, and just warmed it up a bit, and then just worked it with my hand to go flush, and afterwards hit the bracket with heat as well, and then just literally used vice grips to bend it all the way back, and then at another 45 down. And then unfortunately I did break my clip, but because of the way it's in there, it's not going anywhere anyways. It's holding the line nicely. So there you go. We test fit this yesterday, and a couple of things I should mention. First, you got to drill out all the holes after it's been coated to make them round again, since the coating dries inside and makes them smaller. And then two, you may have to bend out these two big tongues a little bit, because they basically go here like that. They slide up against this and bolt in here. But if you look, I measured mine and I'm at 34.5, and when I measure the width between these two, I'm about 1/4 inch too narrow, so it actually was hitting. But I spoke with the owner of Red Dog, and he said that's not too unusual, and just to hit this with a rubber mallet a few times to give it, bend it out a little bit. So just a heads up. Okay guys, so I've taped off the headlights. I filed down all the metal that I cut. You want to do that to prevent rust, and also to save you from cutting your arm open while you're reaching down to unscrew a bolt or something, or your mechanic. So make sure you file down all your cuts, sand it down, and then go over everything with a coat of rust primer. Also covered up the washer fluid reservoir, which stuck out like a sore thumb. I might end up cutting these tabs off because they're not necessary anymore, but the less I have to cut, the better, so I'll see how it looks. A couple other spots here. I ended up being quite liberal with the paint and just kind of coating a lot of the spots underneath, just to give it a nice even dark color. Just make sure you don't spray the radiator or the electrical connections. Alright, so we're getting there. One tip for bolting this thing up, get some help, and when you both lift the bumper from either end, rest the bumper, these 3 holes, just on the tips of these bolts. Don't push it all the way flush, because, well, in my case the hole didn't line up. So what I had to do was rest the bumper on just the very tips of these bolts, and I had enough leverage to turn it this way and wiggle it around to get this to get in. And then what you want to do is snug these up somewhat, then get these on, and then do it all together. But basically I had to rest the bumper on the very tips of these bolts in order to get that one to go in. Okay everybody, so just trying to show you how I cut the plastic flares here. As you can see, it's cut flush. I ended up cutting it, drilling a little hole there for a zip tie to get the fender attached at the top. I might do another little hole right there just to get it nice and flush. This hole was already there, and so was this hole inside the fender. And that's it. Same on the other side.